Hi, this is Chinmayi. Welcome to my channel. And today we are going to be speaking to somebody I really love, admire, look up to. And she is I would say, one of the sole reasons that I actually fell down the rabbit hole of K-beauty. It was her blog that I found first, 50 Shades of Snail. And from there, I actually started buying my first set of products of K-beauty from sellers in Korea. And she had, thankfully for me, luckily for me, she had started her blog sometime in 2014, and I discovered her blog sometime in 2015 thanks to, while I was reading something in a purse or a bag blog that I actually follow, the 10-step K-beauty routine. I clicked on that link, and that was the beginning to everything that is I Love Skin today. Thereafter, Jude Chao, or Fiddysnails as she is known on social media, she, I am sure, has been the reason why a lot of these very cult, very small K-beauty brands have come to be known across the world. Initially, she took so much effort to translate each of these ingredients from Korean to English. There was a lot that was lost in translation because South Korea as such does not speak English. So there used to be a lot of these products that you see today. A lot of bloggers who speak English would reach out to the brands and tell them that your brand name and your product name is actually getting mistranslated in English. So for example, the COSRX's Whitehead Power Liquid was once called COSRX White Power Liquid. So these are things, these are changes that bloggers have done throughout time. They have worked with brands, they have told them, they have given them feedback, and they have told them what is lost and missing in translation and why some of these brand names are also racist. Fiddysnails, or Jude Chao, also has a podcast called the Snail Cast, which she does with other bloggers like Shell. She has also come up with her own Holy Snails, right? So she's come up with her own skincare line, which some of which I have bought myself. And Fan Serviced Bee is another blog that I used to follow a lot. So she started this trend of using acids on your scalp, because basically a scalp is also skin, so that needs to be treated and helped like as we would our facial skin or the skin on our hands or on our feet. So she started off this entire trend of using acids on her scalp, and then brands quickly saw that and copied it and didn't give her much credit. Anyway, coming back today, I am so happy to have this interview and this time from Jude Chao. I'm going to be asking her a lot of questions, both on K-beauty and what her association. She's also associated with I Love Skin as a mentor, as an advisor. So let me take you right in. Jude, it's lovely to have you on my channel, and I am going to be asking you this. I fell down the rabbit hole, looking at your blog. So when did your journey with K-beauty start?
So you talk about going down the rabbit hole. I went down the rabbit hole too. So I think it was when I was about 31 or so. I've always been interested in skincare because from the time when I was little, I watched my mom take care of her skin back in the 80s and the early 90s, and she was quite meticulous about it. She would go to get Clinique, get Estee Lauder, get those at the time, like the most premium products that we could find in our town, and she took really good care of her skin. And it's something that I carried with me, but let's say when I was younger, like in the 90s and the early 2000s, we didn't really have a wealth of information about skincare. So if you remember back then, what we had was like maybe advice from people that we know, family members, or people that sell products at department stores, or we can look at magazines. And as we get older, we sort of discover that a lot of the advice that you might find in a magazine or the recommendations that you might find may not be so unbiased. So I was also too broke in my 20s to really bother with anything serious. So by the time I got to about 31 or so, I'd had my son. I was in a stable, a much better paying job. So I had the money to really start to feel like I could start to explore it. And at that time, there was so much more information because of the internet, because of social media. Sites like Reddit, where I started, was really looking at the Reddit skincare groups. Like Skincare Addiction was a group on Reddit that at the time was heavily science focused, and they discussed a lot about ingredients. That's where it really started to click for me, because these were advice and recommendations, first of all, coming from real people. So not magazine editors or kind of celebrity endorsements, but just regular people that were interested in this. And second of all, that heavy science focus that they had at the time was something that helped me make sense of all of it. You know, a lot of cosmetics marketing is very confusing, and brands have a lot of leeway to kind of slap a very scientific, fancy sounding name on any sort of combination of ingredients that they have. And if we don't look into it more deeply, it's quite easy to get fooled by things that end up not being very effective. So I got a lot of information on the basics of what to look for in skincare from Reddit. And as I went further down that rabbit hole, it was right at that time that K-beauty was starting to get attention. Very, very cult, very small communities. And it was mostly people that were K-pop or K-drama fans at the time that were going to the effort of looking up the beauty products they used and starting to introduce that on their blogs and on their online communities. And people kept talking about this one product. It was like Snail, this Korean snail essence that people were using and they were loving. And that sort of really hit me, because it was like Asian products getting attention here in the West, which is something that I've never seen before outside of like Shiseido or the, you know, very high-end brands. Usually you don't hear about sort of everyday, more accessible Asian brands here. And so just on a personal level, I thought it was really exciting. And I've always kind of wondered if Asian products might simply work better for my skin, being Asian. So I got that product. It was like Benton Snail Essence, and it worked well for me. And then I just sort of kept going. And then as I was learning, I'm a writer by training and by trade. So communicating with words has always come very easily to me, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy connecting with people and sort of writing about things. So I was also starting to contribute to these communities, to write product reviews, to answer questions, to make posts. And I found that I was gaining a fair amount of people that specifically really seemed to look for what I would say, or that really took my opinion seriously. At that point, being, you know, when you post things on sites like Reddit, you don't really own your content. You don't have a lot of control over how it appears either. So you can't format it with photos the way that you might like. So I just originally started the blog to have a place where I could put the things that I was writing and kind of the tips that I wanted to give people that would belong to me, that I could have control over in terms of like the images, the graphics, the ads that are shown. It just blew up so quickly from there. I'm really, really lucky that it was a perfect timing, because I started my blog, I think it was early 2014 or early 2015.
Yeah.
Right when the trend was really blowing up. So I had good timing. I had the privilege of having come from digital publishing, digital marketing background. So I knew the basics of like SEO, how to promote your work, how to get it seen by Google. And it just went from there, and it's been life-changing. I was a tech journalist before, so it's been a complete 180 in terms of my work. My life has been totally changed by this.
I would definitely say if brands like COSRX are popular throughout the world, they owe it to you in a huge way. And if so many of us follow K-beauty, we also owe it to you. Now, I also remember one of the first names that came, which I did say, I mentioned in the introduction of this video, of how COSRX's first brand names, and so much was lost in translation, and the first names used to be called White Power Liquid, right?
I know.
Jude, I remember how you started writing your blog, and so much from South Korea. Korea still doesn't speak English, right? So where did you get this impetus to start writing your own blog, and how long did a typical blog take you?
It was actually a lot of labor, and I'm not Korean. I don't speak Korean, I'm Taiwanese. But there's actually a great app that my friend Tracy over at Fanservice B turned me on to, because she actually was manually translating ingredients lists when she needed to. But there's an app that's used in Korea called Hwahae,
Mm.
Hwahae,
Mm-hmm.
and that serves as a really excellent database for Korean ingredients lists. So in order to even use that app, because it doesn't have an English language interface, you still have to like find some guides that sort of tell you what each screen is asking you for, so that you
Wow.
can like sign up and then find the right button to hit so that you can look up a product. But from there, the labor was look up the product, really try to confirm, like look at the product images and make sure that it's the right one, which can be like, you got to be really careful about that. And then you do have to manually transcribe it, because it's not giving you the ingredient translation as like just one list. It's like a spreadsheet, a table, basically.
Yeah,
So
I
then
saw
I
that.
would go down through that list and manually transcribe everything, the English version, but you have to like double check and make sure that it's all in the right order and make sure that you didn't miss anything either. So it's like with, these is like product labels that are in a language that I don't know, and like taking pictures so I can enlarge it and going back and forth from the app to my screen, like
Mm.
I think I gave myself a lot of headaches from doing that. And now it's much easier now, because a lot of Korean brands have realized that the international market is quite important and can really bring them growth.
Right.
So they're much better about providing English ingredients lists. Like you mentioned COSRX, and I think that they are one of the most interesting brand success stories. And I've been so happy to kind of know them and to have worked with them since they were small, because when they launched, they were a tiny brand, a little indie brand. They weren't under one of the bigger, like LG brands has big brands, and then there's Amore Pacific owns so many brands. They weren't under one of those conglomerates. They were just like this little indie brand. They just sold online. Nobody in Korea had heard of them, but they had very intelligently, I think, targeted the international market, especially the US market, especially people that were very serious about wanting simple but effective skincare.
Mm.
And they delivered what people hadn't been able to find elsewhere, which was products that are very simple, easy to understand, easy to use. And from that focus on the international market, after that, they blew up enough to eventually be in brick and mortar stores in Korea. And as you've seen, like they've expanded so much now. They have so many new products and launches. And that's, if I've been at all influential in kind of their success, that makes me really proud, because they are one of my favorite brands.
Jude, so did you discover COSRX on your own, or did you also discover this from Reddit?
It was from Reddit. Like, I can't say that I was the first one to discover them at all. It was, I had seen other bloggers talking about a few of their products, and I'd been really intrigued because at the time, the products that they were pushing were like their AHA and their BHA. And
Hmm.
those were coincidentally the actives that I was really wanting to experiment with more. But in the US, most of our options for, let's say, an alpha hydroxy acid at that time was going to be Paula's Choice, which is
Yes.
quite expensive
Yeah.
compared to COSRX's prices. And for BHAs, you can go with Paula's Choice again and spend way more money. Or the other option is Stridex pads, the ones that everybody here gets when they're like 14 years old and having acne for the first time. And I actually do tell people, if your skin is pretty oily and you're not very sensitive, those Stridex pads are actually really good. They're effective, but I wanted something more gentle, and COSRX was like the perfect balance of an effective formula that's not too strong, and it didn't cost like $40-50 a bottle for that.
Right.
So it was just genius. It fit.
Considering you have a background in tech journalism and you were actually researching each of these skincare ingredients to see if the claims that are made by the brand or the product are actually true. So, did it spark an interest in skincare science, and did you wish that perhaps you could have paid some more attention to that in school?
I actually for my high school, I went to a math and science academy. It was a very, very serious STEM school. Unfortunately, at the time, I had been going through some things in my personal life. I had lost my mom the year before. These aren't excuses, but it's just sort of where I was as a teenager. I
Mm.
didn't really take my studies so seriously, and I've always been more drawn to humanities, writing, and communications anyway. So I certainly I have enough of a background because I had to take pretty serious science courses at a pretty young age, but I don't have a degree or anything like that. A lot of what I've learned from reading and kind of learning how to read the studies and how to interpret them comes from having made friends with people who are much better with science than me. So people like Michelle from Lab Muffin
Mm.
and people like Stephen from Kind of Stephen that are very legit. Like Michelle is a chemistry PhD. Stephen is a cosmetic chemist. I've always believed that when we have a shortcoming in ourselves, that's a really good time to learn from someone else. And so I had probably drive them crazy sometimes. It definitely have always felt sort of free to try to look through what they've written before and understand how they come to their conclusions. And that informs how I go about understanding ingredients and understanding the science.
Yeah, so thanks to you, and because of your shares and posts, I also now follow Lab Muffin and Kind of Stephen. How did you deal with people who would demand that you should help them with their skincare routine? Such comments would have come to you. I'm pretty aware they must have come to you. So, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, so the wording that you used, I think that I know exactly what you're talking about. Definitely, look, I love talking about skincare. I love helping people kind of figure out if a product may be effective for them or not. I like just hearing their stories and sharing my experiences. I think that there's definitely a certain kind of netizen who maybe sort of overestimates a blogger or a skincare guru's ability to help them specifically.
Right.
So a lot of what I really try to communicate to people is I don't know you. I'm not a doctor. I can tell you how something worked on me. I would give you all the details about whether something worked or not for my skin. I'll tell you about my skin. I can't make you any promises, and I cannot do something like diagnose your skin problems. I can't really prescribe anything for you. So, and most people understand this. And in the millions probably of conversations I've had, the majority of them are awesome because people do understand that I'm coming to you as a skincare enthusiast who's probably spent a lot more time steeped in this than other people have. So I can speak from that point of view, but you can't give me a list of the 10 products you're using that most of them I've never heard of and sort of think that I'm going to be able to look at that list and tell you exactly what is going on, like why things aren't working or why you're breaking out, because I can't do that. Even a dermatologist wouldn't really be able to do that. Everyone's skin is so individual and there's so many products and so many ingredients. I can tell you how to figure out what a problem is. And there's definitely sometimes people will, I don't like complaining, but I'll admit that I find it sort of rude if you create a piece of content about some specific topic, right? Like maybe it's X product or this is the skincare routine for the night. And then sometimes I think people forget that we're also people and they just sort of see you as this information dispenser. So they
Mm.
kind of come up in the comments like, hey, how can I fix something about their skin that has nothing to do with the content? And so at that point, you got to work with me here. Like, DM me
Yeah.
or something, but a piece of content is part of a conversation, so it's not really helpful. And I don't really want to encourage the expectation that bloggers can just tell you the answer that you're asking for, no matter what. Because we can't, and that's part of the discomfort. Like, I would love to be able to tell every single person, this is exactly what you personally need to do to
Mm.
fade dark marks or improve your skin tone, things like that. I don't know you, so it's a much less straightforward process. And you have been really happy with what you've learned from me. I know a lot of other people have too, but we also know that it's a little bit of a different interaction than like your own personal esthetician that knows everything about your skin, what you're using, and can really give you like solid prescriptions of what to do. I always see myself as more what I've learned and helping to set an expectation for what could happen, but I can never promise. And I think that that's what people sometimes look for, like the kind of netizens that you're talking about that would demand answers. What they're looking for is for you to promise them that you can tell them exactly what to do to get the result that they want. And that's not possible with any of us. Anybody who says that they can do that is lying.
True,
You know,
true.
like they're trying to take your money. That's all. Anyone who is like realistic and serious about this will tell you, can't I can't for sure tell you that this will break you out or won't break you out or will do the thing or it won't. Like we just don't know.
You and fellow bloggers like Holy Snail started a podcast called the Snail Cast. Was that a couple of years ago, if I'm right?
I think we started it, I want to say it was early 2016 because we had
Wow.
Tracy, Shell, and Kat and I had all kind of become friends around the same time. It was like basically around the same time that I had started my blog and Shell had started her blog. Tracy and Kat already had theirs. And we had just all clicked really well because we have very similar outlooks on skincare and on content creation. Like we get each other. And we'd talk so much. Like we have a group chat that's been going since that time, basically nonstop. We're always talking to each other. And we just thought it would be kind of fun without any real expectation of, oh, this will get popular, we'll get sponsors or anything. We just thought it would be hilarious to get on the phone, on audio, and just let rip and just talk about these things as real people. Again, not as beauty editors or paid spokespeople, but just as the people that we are. And it was so fun. I think we would still be doing it if only it is very hard to schedule, like our recording sessions would routinely be like 2 to 3 hours. To schedule that kind of a block of time with two of us having small children and the four of us being in 3 different time zones with our own kind of work responsibilities and everything. And then editing each episode is like a lot of work.
So a lot of people, especially with trends, they believe that it's going to last a little while, it's going to ride a wave, and then it's going to go bust. So where do you see the K-beauty trend going? And because of you, I also knew about Japanese beauty and Taiwanese beauty. And thanks to you, we are getting Annie's Way. We have gotten Annie's Way into India. We're going to be launching that soon. So where do you see this trend going?
So I think what's happened is that the concept of K-beauty as a monolithic trend is pretty much done. You don't really see many outlets kind of writing about just the idea of Korean beauty, the Korean skincare routine as a whole. And we always knew that the trend itself wasn't going to last forever. That's just the nature of trends. However, I don't see that as a bad thing because what has happened is that the general concepts and philosophies of K-beauty are just very normalized now. So you'll see Western brands have essences. There's a lot more of a focus on serums. Like high-end brands have always had these sort of serum products and categories, but now even like mid-range and drugstore brands have serums. That's something that the whole Korean beauty, like the 7-step or 10-step routine normalized. You see more hydrating toners, you see cleansing oils and cleansing balms and sheet masks all from Western brands. So what's happened is that the concepts have just been integrated. So now we can get a sheet mask or we can get a hydrating toner and we don't necessarily think of it as part of our Korean routine. It's just a normal part of skincare now. And in this transition, I think that some brands that became popular in the West because of the K-beauty trend are not so popular anymore. So like, you know, in the beginning, especially because it was a very young audience that first got into it, it was things that were very cutesy, like Tony Moly, very, very inexpensive, very cutesy, like animal-shaped packages and stuff like that.
Right.
Those things are not as popular now, and that's fine because the brands that have what it takes in terms of quality, effectiveness, and their kind of communication to the audience have stuck around and are much more established. So we talk about like COSRX or going on the high end side, like Sorasu.
Mm.
They're not going anywhere. So it's not like they don't have to be tied to the K-beauty trend. They now just exist and people will just buy them without considering, oh, it's Korean, that's why I'm buying it. It did bother me when the trend was at its peak that a lot of people sort of had this assumption that Korean skincare is inherently better. Oh, I mean, it's a whole country. There's really good stuff. There's not so good stuff. There's very gimmicky, kind of cheap stuff. As in any other market, there's a variance. So I think the fact that the trend has died down a little bit now enables people to sift through things more with a more objective eye and be able to identify the products and the brands that really work for them, as opposed to just kind of getting sucked in by a trendy brand. And then if it doesn't work out, if it's kind of like the product is trash, then it might have turned them off Korean skincare altogether.
Did you ever believe that you're going to be having this sort of followers and anticipation all over the world, with people waiting for your next post and your next blog? What are you going to write about? Which product do you like and which has your stamp of approval?
I didn't. I really had no expectation of that when I started the blog. And I didn't know that the whole trend was going to blow up too. Again, I was really lucky with my timing. I mean, it's a dream come true. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be a writer and like a lot of other little girls, I wanted to be like famous somehow, which I have enough now. Like the level that I'm at is perfect. I don't need any more than that. And I've always loved kind of beauty and fashion and cosmetics. So it was very, very surprising, and it's all felt like, and it can be cheesy and say that it feels like fate. And I can be a little more honest and say, I think I told my brother this once. It feels like I finally found a way to weaponize my vanity and make that into my career, which is,
Nice.
like you have to do what you love, right? That's what people always recommend when you choose your life path. I really like crimping. So now it can be my career, and it's worked out great.
Have you actually had any creepy followers?
The block button comes in really handy for that. And I will say that it's probably less than other people get. I don't think that I have to deal with it on a constant basis, but certainly I think that social media sometimes allows people to forget that the person they're talking to is also a human being.
Yeah.
So they sort of, if someone is seeing you as an object, they can definitely say some really creepy things. It's not a secret that I live in Southern California, so I think probably the creepiest thing is being told, I could totally come down and hang out with you. And I'm like, no, let's not do that. But, Instagram makes it pretty easy to block if someone is really feeling very uncomfortable, very threatening. And Instagram has a really nice feature of, if you're not already talking to this person, you don't follow them, and they send you a photo, it doesn't show you until you allow. Right. So it's great. So for me, it hasn't been a huge problem. It's, I think, just one of the unfortunate realities of being, having a presence in the online world.
What do you think are the challenges of being a skincare influencer?
I think there's a few challenges. So the first one is what we talked about before, is sort of managing people's expectations about what you can do for them personally. Because there's a difference between explaining ingredients and what they theoretically should be able to do if the formula is good, versus promising to fix somebody. We can't fix people. I think that some other challenges that come up are sort of inherent to the influencer sort of world, which is trying to maintain a lack of bias when you start being offered sponsorships. But I'll tell you this, for me, I don't have a problem with being unbiased about brands or products, because if I don't like something, I don't really want more of it. If I'm not pleased with a brand, or they're not a brand that works for me, then why would I want more of a relationship with them? But there's also kind of a suspicion on the audience's part that's very justified, and I feel the same way when I look at other accounts, which is they will wonder, if you're being objective or if you're being paid to say this or that. So I think the only thing we can really do is be clear when we disclose our relationships with brands and whether we received a product for free or not, and just trust in the intelligence of our audiences to know that we didn't buy this and to draw their own conclusions from there. I've definitely like gotten products sent to me that I really hated, and I haven't been shy about talking about that. Like Sunday Riley's eye serum gave me the weirdest reaction around my, it smelled like dirty towels and it made my eyes dry and itchy. And that's, you know, again, if I didn't like it, I don't really want more. So I don't have a problem saying that I didn't like it.
We see a lot of skincare influencers now on social media. Everybody's doing their own routine, sharing their routines. And here's a question that I've always had. So these are products that sometimes we buy. Some of these products are sent to us. So how does a skincare influencer maintain his or her authenticity or their authenticity while they're sharing their favorite products? How do they still maintain integrity and still be honest while promoting the brands that they love?
That's a great question. You know, I think that a lot of it comes down to simply being discriminating about what you accept. So especially when one is a little bit newer and you're just starting to get attention, maybe you're just starting to get offers from brands for products or for sponsorships, it's very flattering for the ego. Apart from anything else, it feels exciting that people want to work with you. They feel that you would benefit them. Like it can feel very good, and it's very easy to say yes to too much. I definitely advise people to take things that you're curious about, but have a sense of curation. If they're offering you something that you have no interest in, then there's no point taking it. There's really no point trying it because it's not something that you would have chosen in the first place. So I think the rule of thumb is if you had an unlimited budget, would you buy it? Are you interested enough that you would buy it? If you're not, and it's just that, oh, you're excited that a brand made you an offer, it's probably not worth it because you're losing that sense of curation. To be a blogger that will just kind of show anything or review anything, I think that people pick up on that, even if they can't articulate it, but they can kind of tell. And it's always been, for me, important to maintain like whatever kind of personal brand a skincare influencer has comes from the curation of the products that they show and that they talk about, because everyone is different. So if you're very undiscriminating about what you're showing, it doesn't really make sense anymore. Then you're kind of like just a billboard at that point.
Yeah.
But if you can be discriminating and really only choose things that you're interested in, only work with brands that you really love, then even if you're working with a bunch of sponsors, even if a lot of your product is from sponsors, I think it comes through that these are what you've chosen out of a process of discriminating between what you want and what you don't.
What plans do you have for your skincare line, which is Love Jude Skincare?
My partner brought me this offer. My partner Eric has a lot of manufacturing connections in Taiwan. And we had been friends for a while anyway. We would talk especially about sheet masks and skincare. And he came to me and said, you know, I realized one of my good friends owns a sheet mask manufacturing facility. And he was telling me the other brands that they manufacture. And it's very, very legit. And he kind of said, do you want to try something? Do you want to do something with this? And of course, it's also another one of my dreams to have my own product line. So sheet masks, I think, are a great place to start because they're quite a simple product. It's low risk for people and it's not rocket science. Like the basic good effects of a sheet mask don't take a month or 2 months of use to create, and they don't necessarily take as long to create from scratch. So it's not just a great place to start, but it's also something that I think works very well for how I see skincare. Like I'm pretty brand agnostic. Obviously, I have certain brands that I love and that I always use products from, but I've never been like a one brand kind of person. And it's not something that I would push on other people too. I've never said, you should only use products from X brand or Y brand. So I wouldn't say that about my own products either. Having sheet masks means that I can bring another option that I really love and that I was involved in from start to finish that contains things that I believe in and I enjoy using, but without trying to tell people that you have to only use my stuff because that
Right.
wouldn't feel honest to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sheet masks, they're fun. Like it's just anyone, even if they aren't super into skincare on a day-to-day basis, pretty much any person can use one and just enjoy it and see a good result right away.
So, are you actually writing a book sometime in the future?
I am. I have a deal with my publisher, and technically, I was supposed to deliver my finished manuscript last month. We're working on it. I'm almost done. We have actually our first kind of team meeting scheduled really soon. It is a hybrid, like skincare guide and self-help book. So as I kind of help people break down the basics of starting a skincare routine, what to look for, what to choose first, and how to build it from there, and sort of tie it into how you can use these routines and these acts of self-care to improve your mental health, to help you manage your moods and anxiety better.
Really? Wow, when is your book coming?
I want to say spring 2021, but it's dependent on when I can finally finish the manuscript and then all the, after that, we've definitely got a process of design and editing and marketing to go through. But I think that the timeline is something like about half a year after I finish the manuscript. So, and I've been
Wow.
pretty quiet about it because I know myself and I realize that it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. So I'll just be quiet until I'm done.
What does skincare and self care mean to you?
There's a few different reasons. And I think the first and most basic reason is that for a lot of us, we're taught that taking care of ourselves is frivolous, that it should be low priority, that other people are more important, doing things for others and pleasing others is more
Mm.
important. So just the act of carving out the time to research into what you want and look for what works for you, and then carving out the time every day to wash your face and put on your toner or serum or sheet mask or whatever. These are actions that teach you. They teach you by repetition that you have value too. It's not about any specific products. It doesn't have to be a 2 hour long routine, but just the fact that you make the choice every day to take care of yourself, I think it helps slowly kind of rewire your brain to remember that you have value and that you should have value to yourself. And I'll say that I have a caveat. I don't think that skincare can be mentally healthy if people are coming at it from a place of fear of like um, judging themselves, criticizing themselves, saying like I have to clear up my acne or no one will love me. I have to get rid of these wrinkles or my husband will leave me. That's different. That's
Mm.
something that is an unhealthy motivation, and that's a really easy way to fall into sort of obsessive or compulsive behaviors, which is something that I talk about in the book, is sort of how to recognize if you're falling into those. But if you are choosing to do skincare out of care and love for yourself and enjoyment of the act for yourself, that in itself is a very, very healthy habit to have. And I think too, especially these days with the pandemic, with a lot of people still fundamentally locked down, stuck at home, it's very easy to kind of fall out of a daily routine to say, oh, stay in bed until the afternoon. Oh, don't need to shower, don't need to wash your face tonight because you're not going anywhere tomorrow. Losing those daily habits, I think, can often be really bad for the mood. It's a really easy way to slide into depression, and it is a sign of a depressive episode when we stop taking care of ourselves like that. So to have something like skincare that you enjoy that motivates you to wash your face, even if you're not going anywhere tomorrow, but just to do it for you. And in the morning, get up, put on your sunscreen to do it for you. These are things that can help us not fall into a state of not caring anymore. And it's, my philosophy for improving your life, your happiness, your mental health is really take small steps. Do what you can at a given time. Nobody should need to overhaul their whole life all at once. It doesn't work. We know this from a lot of projects that people do and a lot of kind of failed self-improvement projects. It's because you're taking on too much. You're trying to change your whole life all at once. Now, don't do that. Take a small step. If you used to wash your face with dish soap once a day, and now you choose to wash your face with something more gentle that works for your skin and then put on a lotion, that's already a great step, and you can build from there. So essentially, skincare is can be that first small step that you take into just valuing yourself more and managing your own life better.
Okay, so considering you started your skincare journey and self-care pretty late, and thanks to you, some of us started it very early, pretty early, or rather at the right time. How soon or how early do you think that somebody can start their skincare routine?
I think that it doesn't hurt. I think it's good for teenagers to start learning and getting into the habit of basic skincare. So obviously, a 15-year-old doesn't need ginseng anti-aging serum. They don't need a retinol eye cream. But for a teenager, I kind of look back at what would have worked well for me at that age, and I would say teenagers can learn a good cleanser, a nice and gentle cleanser. Don't be using that stuff that burns your whole face off. If they have acne, maybe one pretty gentle treatment option. So just kind of depending on what kind of acne they have, it could be the COSRX BHA if they have blackheads. If they have whiteheads or more closed acne, they may try the COSRX AHA. And then just a sunscreen and moisturizer. Those are just the good basic foundational habits to have. They don't need 10 steps. They don't need eye serum, but they can certainly learn to just do the basics of cleansing, moisturizing, and sunscreen, and they can do something simple to treat what issues they have now. I wish someone had told me when I was a teenager, don't pick your acne. Don't do it. And wear sunscreen. These two things, everyone could learn this younger and it would work.
So skincare is usually targeted at women. It's only recently that, people have started talking about it for men as well. But how do we make this skincare space a lot more inclusive so that all genders are included and they are also spoken to while we speak about skincare and self-care? How do we make this inclusive?
I think that part of it is sort of decoupling the concept of skincare from the goal of beauty. So in the way that skincare is marketed to women, it's always tied to a concept of a certain aesthetic, right? A certain kind of, and there is certainly some men that also have a cosmetic or an aesthetic goal, but it leaves out a lot of men who, because they haven't been socialized to think that they should have a certain kind of skin tone, whatever. The beauty is not something that interests them, but obviously there's a practical point to skincare. If you take good care of your skin, it becomes less sensitive. You'll get less reactions if you work outdoors, if you work with any kind of substances that bother your skin. If you learn to take care of your skin better, you can reduce those problems. It's practical. It can be just for your comfort or for your health. Actually, someone that I know recently had been having issues with a skin reaction. And, as a man, you can't tell, I wouldn't tell this person or other people like him, oh, you should use this and that because then your skin will be soft and bright. They don't care. That's not the point to them. But, so well, maybe you can try washing with something more gentle so that the skin barrier isn't as damaged. So that will help minimize irritation because it's not getting in through a damaged skin barrier. And, one can go from there. Men are susceptible to skin cancer as well as women. So on a practical and health level, there can be more education just around ultimately the point of sunscreen is to prevent the sun damage that causes cancer. And I
Correct.
think that's an approach that a lot of brands are not really taking right
Mm.
now. But for the like marketed specifically to men toiletries that are always overly aggressively masculine, right? It's like this weird colors and big letters. It's like man scent. Also ridiculous. And then it's overpriced too because they're marketing to men specifically. Like
Yeah.
we can just decouple the idea of skincare from other concepts of like beauty or masculinity or femininity and remind people that this is a practical part of hygiene and grooming that can help your daily comfort, right? Dry skin doesn't feel good for anyone. If you're a man and you don't care if your skin looks a certain way, that's fine. But if your skin is dry and cracked and itchy, it just doesn't feel good. So skincare can help.
Jude, thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait for your book. And when your book comes, I am waiting to get them to India so that I could send this across to people who buy from Isle of Skin. I can't wait to get Love Jude skincare to India if that's even possible. I'm so grateful for your time. Thanks for everything that you do. Thanks for inspiring me to take on the K-beauty journey. Thanks for being a mentor to Isle of Skin and an advisor. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Take care.